On December 2, 2024, South Korea experienced a political earthquake. President Yoon Suk-yeol declared martial law, a move that sent shockwaves throughout the nation and the world. This drastic measure, unprecedented in South Korea's recent democratic history, placed the entire country under military control. For a tense 6 hours, the specter of authoritarianism loomed large. Citizens grappled with the sudden and dramatic shift in their governance. Then, just as abruptly as it began, the crisis ended. President Yoon lifted martial law, leaving a nation reeling in the aftermath. The swift reversal did little to quell the unease. Questions lingered about the motives behind the declaration and its implications for the future of South Korean democracy. The world watched with bated breath, uncertain of what this unprecedented event meant for the region and beyond. The memory of those 6 hours served as a stark reminder of the fragility of democratic institutions, even in a nation that had seemingly transitioned to a stable democracy. The brief period of martial law exposed deep political divisions within South Korea. It also raised concerns about the potential for future power grabs. The international community, accustomed to seeing South Korea as a beacon of democracy in East Asia, expressed alarm and condemnation. The episode served as a stark reminder of the importance of upholding democratic norms and the rule of law. The events of December 2 and 3, 2024, will undoubtedly be etched in South Korea's history. Only time will tell what lasting impact this brief but significant return to martial law will have on the nation's political landscape. However, one thing is certain: the world will be watching closely as South Korea navigates the challenges to its democracy. President Yoon's decision to declare martial law stemmed from a bitter political battle with the opposition-controlled National Assembly. Citing anti-state activities by the Democratic Party, Yoon accused them of undermining national security. He specifically pointed to their legislative and budgetary actions as evidence of their supposed disloyalty. In a televised address to the nation, Yoon claimed these actions were designed to weaken the country's defenses and appease North Korea. Yoon further accused the opposition of being sympathetic to the North Korean regime. He alleged that the Democratic Party's policies were emboldening Pyongyang and jeopardizing South Korea's security. This rhetoric of fear and division resonated with his conservative base but drew sharp criticism from the opposition and international observers. They accused him of using the specter of North Korea to justify a power grab and silence dissent. The president's justifications for imposing martial law were met with widespread skepticism. Critics argued that his claims of anti-state activities were baseless and politically motivated. They pointed to his declining approval ratings and the looming threat of impeachment as evidence that he was attempting to cling to power by any means necessary. The speed with which he acted, without consulting with key allies or providing concrete evidence, further fueled suspicions of ulterior motives. The international community, including South Korea's closest allies, expressed deep concern over Yoon's actions. The United States, while reaffirming its commitment to South Korea's defense, publicly criticized the declaration of martial law. This condemnation from a key ally underscored the severity of Yoon's actions and the damage they inflicted on South Korea's international standing. The episode raised serious questions about Yoon's judgment and his commitment to democratic principles. Throughout its history, the Korean peninsula has been a focal point for military intervention. From ancient dynasties to modern superpowers, the region has seen countless battles and occupations. These interventions have left deep scars, shaping the political and social landscape of both North and South Korea. North Korea, under its authoritarian regime, has often been a source of regional instability. The country's pursuit of nuclear weapons, coupled with its unpredictable leadership, has kept the international community on edge. Despite numerous sanctions and diplomatic efforts, the shadow of instability continues to loom large over the Korean peninsula.
In an increasingly complex world, it is crucial for citizens to understand the mechanisms of power that can impact their lives. One such mechanism, often shrouded in controversy and fear, is martial law. This essay aims to shed light on this complex issue, explaining what martial law entails and its potential ramifications for individuals, nations, and the international community. Martial law, in its essence, represents a shift from civilian rule to military authority. While the specific circumstances leading to its imposition may vary, the implications are often far-reaching and profound. By exploring the historical context, legal frameworks, and real-world examples, we can gain a deeper understanding of martial law and its potential consequences. This knowledge is essential for informed citizenry, enabling individuals to engage in meaningful discourse about the delicate balance between security and freedom. Martial law, in essence, is the imposition of military rule over a civilian population. It represents a temporary suspension of ordinary law and the transfer of power to the military. This extraordinary measure is typically invoked in times of extreme crisis, when the civilian government is deemed incapable of maintaining order or ensuring the safety of its citizens. Under martial law, the military assumes control of essential functions, including law enforcement, the judiciary, and even the legislative process. The extent of military authority can vary depending on the severity of the situation, ranging from limited interventions to complete control over all aspects of governance. The imposition of martial law is often triggered by extraordinary circumstances that threaten the very fabric of a nation. One common trigger is war or external aggression, where the military's expertise in security and logistics becomes paramount. Internal unrest, such as widespread riots, insurrections, or natural disasters, can also lead to the declaration of martial law. In such situations, the government may argue that the civilian authorities are overwhelmed and that military intervention is necessary to restore order and protect lives and property. However, the decision to impose martial law is rarely taken lightly, as it represents a significant curtailment of civil liberties and democratic processes. The imposition of martial law has a profound impact on the daily lives of citizens. One of the most immediate changes is the increased military presence on the streets. Soldiers may patrol neighborhoods, set up checkpoints, and enforce curfews, restricting the movement of people and vehicles. Citizens may also experience limitations on their freedom of assembly, speech, and the press, as the military seeks to maintain order and prevent the spread of dissent. In some cases, martial law can lead to the suspension of habeas corpus, allowing the military to detain individuals without trial for extended periods. Section 5. Economic consequences, disruptions, and uncertainty. The imposition of martial law can have significant economic consequences. The disruption of normal business activities, coupled with the uncertainty surrounding the political situation, can lead to a decline in investment, tourism, and consumer spending. The enforcement of curfews and restrictions on movement can disrupt supply chains, leading to shortages of essential goods and services. Moreover, the perception of instability and risk associated with martial law can deter foreign investors and damage a country's international reputation. So, Section 6, Legal and Human Rights, Potential for Abuses. One of the most concerning aspects of martial law is the potential for human rights abuses. When the military is granted sweeping powers with limited oversight, there is a risk that these powers may be used to silence dissent, target political opponents, or engage in extrajudicial killings. The suspension of due process and the right to a fair trial can create an environment of impunity where abuses go unpunished. International human rights organizations often express concerns about the erosion of civil liberties and the potential for human rights violations under martial law. Section 7. International repercussions, concerns, and condemnation. The imposition of martial law in a country often draws international attention and scrutiny. Neighboring countries may be concerned about the potential for spillover effects, such as an influx of refugees or the spread of instability. The international community, through organizations like the United Nations, may express concerns about the human rights situation and call for a swift return to civilian rule. In some cases, countries may impose sanctions or withdraw diplomatic relations with a country under martial law as a way of expressing disapproval and pressuring the government to restore democratic norms. Section 8. Historical examples. From Poland to Thailand. History is replete with examples of martial law being imposed in various countries, each with its own unique set of circumstances and consequences. In 1981, General Wojciech Jaruzelski declared martial law in Poland in response to the Solidarity movement's growing influence and the threat of Soviet intervention. The military crackdown led to the arrest of thousands of activists, the suppression of independent trade unions, and a period of political repression. In Thailand, martial law has been declared numerous times throughout its history, often in response to political instability and protests. The most recent instance was in 2014 when the military seized power in a coup d'etat, citing the need to restore order after months of street protests. Section 9. Conclusion. A measure of last resort. Martial law is a double-edged sword. While it can be a necessary tool for restoring order in times of extreme crisis, it also poses significant risks to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. It represents a suspension of normal legal and political processes, transferring power to the military, which may not always prioritize the rights and freedoms of citizens. The decision to impose martial law should never be taken lightly and should only be considered as a measure of last resort when all other options have been exhausted. The international community has a responsibility to monitor situations where martial law is in effect and to hold governments accountable for upholding human rights and ensuring a swift return to democratic governance.